What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Young Guns podcast. You guys know what we're going to be talking about today. Connor Bedard, the consensus first overall pick in the upcoming 2023 draft. A guy who's killing it currently in the World Juniors. He tied the Canadian single gamer record for most points in a game for Team Canada, recording 7 points last night for Team Canada. And this is a team. This is a player essentially that is going to be a generational talent in the making. A team would be desperate to do anything in their path to get their hands on a player like Connor Bedard. There's bottom feeder teams that have the luxury of essentially having a great opportunity at picking him right now. Teams like Chicago, Anaheim, Montreal, Arizona, Philadelphia, and Columbus. But what team would he change the franchise of? What team would he be the face of the franchise of? What team could become a contender within the next couple of years because of Connor Bedard? Can he be the Connor McDavid to one of these teams that we're going to be talking about today? So, Luca, which team should he go to? What's the best fit for Connor Bedard?
Well, I think there's a lot of really interesting teams that he could be a fit on. I think if you look at one team, for example, Chicago makes a lot of sense as a team that's trying to rebuild. I think to rebuild and get a piece like Connor Bedard on their team, especially with the fact that they traded guys like Kirby Doc and Alex DeBrincat over the summer. They're linked to potentially trading away Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews as well. This is a team that's going full on rebuild, and I think the best way to start this rebuild is to get a generational talent like Connor Bedard in their system. Having guys like Frank Nazar as well, Kevin Korchinski in their system as well, I think would help that rebuild a little bit more. So I think Chicago makes a ton of sense. One team that I've always thought would actually make a really good amount of sense, just because I think they're a really good team and they're not far off, is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They signed Johnny Gaudreau during the summer. They've got Patrick Laine locked up for a little longer as well. Juracek and Matejchuk as defensive prospects, with Stanislav Svozil, who's also having a really good World Junior as well. Um, I think Columbus adding a guy like Connor Bedard potentially on their team would absolutely change the franchise like there's no tomorrow. I think they instantly become a contender with him as well. Especially with like the fact that they also have Kent Johnson, who he's familiar with playing in the World Juniors with, and also Cole Sillinger as well, who's another big prospect for them. I think Columbus would set themselves really nicely for the future, and I think it would make a lot of sense for him to end up there. Obviously, there's Anaheim as well. The reason Anaheim makes sense is because Trevor Zegras, already young enough. He's already pretty much a superstar in the making. Mason McTavish, who's having a really good year. Troy Terry as well, who had a really solid year last year with Anaheim. And then they obviously at the back end they've got Jamie Drysdale. I think adding a guy like Connor Bedard speeds up the rebuild for the Ducks. It allows them to essentially become a better team, and it allows them to also potentially compete for a playoff spot as early as next year. And then I'm going to move on to the other teams, which is Philly, Montreal, San Jose as well as potentially an option. But just for Philly and Montreal, really quickly, Philly don't have an elite prospect on their team currently. They're kind of there. They don't really have a decent prospect pool. I think adding Cole Caulfield to not Cole Caulfield, Connor Bedard to this type of team with the likes of Cam York and stuff like that as well could definitely help Philly. And it's the step in the right direction for them. For Montreal, I mean, look, Montreal would be a dream, I think, for any Habs fan that's there, just because Montreal is interesting, because they have two lottery picks as of right now. As of this recording, they have two chances at Connor Bedard essentially, and so because of that, I think it makes a lot of sense. Not only that, but Montreal would instantly become a really good team with Connor Bedard. It's the final piece to their rebuilding puzzle, in my opinion. He instantly becomes their best player, in my opinion, alongside Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. It speeds up that rebuild mightily, and their top six becomes absolutely fantastic for the future. And I think Montreal becomes a playoff team if they land Connor Bedard as early as next season. And then just San Jose, really, really quickly with San Jose. I don't know if it's likely that he ends up there, but if he does, kind of the same situation with the other teams, with the likes of potentially moving Timo Meyer and also Eric Carlson's trade rumors that are going around, I think San Jose might be in the market to potentially tank the end of the season, which would make them candidates for Connor Bedard. Um, I think San Jose makes sense, like kind of similar to Philly, in the sense that they don't really have top end prospects apart from William Eklund. And so I think for them, having William Eklund and potentially Connor Bedard on their team would essentially help them out and would kickstart their rebuild. So those are, I think, the teams that would make sense. If I had to pick one team that I think would absolutely change their franchise, obviously Montreal. But the other one, and the one that I believe would actually make a really good amount of sense, would be Columbus. And I've been saying it from the beginning. If Connor Bedard ends up in Columbus, this Columbus team for years to come is going to be one of the best teams in the NHL.
And look, I know there's a lot of people saying that they would like him to go to Vancouver, which was his, childhood team.
Yeah.
Vancouver's been playing a lot better recently, so I don't think that's gonna happen. They have too many players to unload to fully go into a rebuild, and to trade a good amount of them by the deadline, I don't think that's gonna happen. St. Louis, it's a good mix of youth and vets. There's rumors about O'Reilly being traded, Tarasenko, because they're UFAs at the end of the year. Is it really gonna change the standings for them to have a good shot at getting Bedard? I don't really think so. Nashville, you know, that's a team as well that could be in the mix. Florida's having a bad season too, but they don't even own their first round pick. It's Montreal's first round pick. Ottawa, just a very disappointing season. They were supposed to be a lot better. I see them picking it up a little bit more, but for me, it all
And
comes
then there's
down to
Arizona too.
yeah, it comes down to Montreal, Arizona, Philly, San Jose, Columbus, Ducks, and Chicago. Chicago, it's an interesting one because you need to replace, that superstar talent that was traded away in the Brinkat and potentially in Kane and Taves that should be traded by the 2023 deadline. So you're gonna need a new face to the franchise. Bedard would easily become that. On the Ducks, you already have Zegras, Mason McTavish, Troy Terry, Jamie Drysdale. You have a lot of faces, young faces on that team. With Bedard coming in, obviously he would be the main guy, but I don't know. I just don't see it being a fit in terms of all those young names already being on the team. Columbus, like you were saying, imagine a line with Bedard, Goudreau, and Liney. That would be fantastic. One of the best first lines in the league. Um, and he wouldn't be like McDavid, suffering to have you know you know top end caliber wingers that could be scoring. He's not gonna have to carry the team like McDavid did for so many years until he got guys like Zach Hyman or Evander Kane or even
Yeah.
forcing Draisaitl onto the wing, even though he's a center. That's not going to be the case in Columbus. The wingers are already set for him. Even Ken Johnson could be a possibility, like you're saying. In terms of San Jose and Philly, these are two teams that have been, going into the rebuilding process recently, and they still have pieces, veteran pieces that need to be moved. So these two teams would be the newest teams in terms of going to a rebuild. So this could be a good benchmark for them to add a guy like Bedard. Arizona, they have so many prospects, and adding a guy like Bedard would change the franchise dramatically because of their situation going to the Mullet Arena now. Limiting the capacity of seats and everything. People saying that they should be relocated. Bedard would change all of that. They already have guys like Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, among Matthias Maselli as well, who's not being spoken about often, but deserves a lot more recognition. And there's a slew of prospects and young guys on that team that would, cushion Bedard and properly surround him for years to come. And then Montreal, you have Slavkovsky, Caden Gooley, Jordan Harris. There's a real youth movement happening in Montreal. And Connor Bedard would be the cherry on top, the franchise player in that team, replacing Carey Price as the face of the franchise, in my opinion. So, any team would be fortunate enough to have Connor Bedard. But for me, honestly, I would have to say that, a team like Philadelphia and Columbus come to mind
To
in
me,
terms of where Bedard, you know, desperately would have a huge impact and is needed on a franchise like those teams.
yeah. Well, I think look, obviously as Habs fans, our dream, like the dream is Connor Bedard. Let's not sugarcoat it here. I think every team's dream that's in the bottom of the standing is Connor Bedard. But for Montreal, you've already kind of mentioned it, right? They already got a youth movement going, so it's. I'm not saying it's not a big deal if they don't if they don't
I
end
think
up
you
getting
get Adam Fantilli or Mitch
yeah,
Cobb.
like
You know,
Montreal's in a
it's a
position where
very
look,
deep,
Montreal's in a
deep
position,
draft.
yeah, but Montreal's in a position where right, if as long as they get a top 10 pick, like it's good enough, right? If they get
Yeah.
Bedard, yeah, like you said, cherry on top. Like don't get me wrong, this team makes the playoffs as of next year, in my opinion. Like it's really like that's how good he is, in my opinion. But the one that I think, and I'm going to reiterate because I said it before, I think Columbus just makes the most amount of sense. And the reason why I think that is because, yes, they're not having the best season, but if you look at how good the Metropolitan Division is, add Connor Bedard to a team like Columbus, who already has a really good forward core and Patrick Laine, Johnny Gaudreau. Their decor for the future is set with Matejchuk, Jiricek, Svozil, Bolkvist, Jake Bean as well. All those guys. And then obviously in net, they have to figure out that situation. But adding Connor Bedard makes Columbus like 10 times better than they already are. And I know that they haven't had the best season either, but that's also because they've had a lot of injuries. They lost Zach Werenski for the rest of the season. Like this is a team that, is not far off from being a competitive team and potentially, challenging for, playoff spots and whatever. So Connor Bedard makes Columbus instantly like probably one of the most entertaining teams in the NHL. But not only that, Columbus, Ohio isn't necessarily a hockey city, right? It's not a hockey market. You don't hear a lot about Columbus unless you live there. And so I think adding Connor Bedard to a team like that, where Johnny Gaudreau decided to go there last year, I think it puts a city like Columbus on the map as well. Which you mentioned Arizona and how important it would be for Arizona to get a guy like that. It's important for a team like Columbus too, because it means that you've already had likes of LeBron James playing in Cleveland in future situations, and now adding a potential generational talent and a guy like Connor Bedard will make people interested in Columbus, the hockey team, more and more, which will allow them to generate more
It's
fans
a
and
it's a
potentially
great
have
it's a great
interest
hockey
in the
market
top team.
already. It's
Yeah,
underrated.
it's underrated, but I'm saying like, like I said, Columbus is one of those teams where they're not talked about as enough and they could be talked about more, right? And if Connor Bedard goes there, they get talked about even more than they already are. They're getting a lot more coverage as well. People are more informed about them, which makes it even better for the city of Columbus as well.
Yeah.
I believe Columbus is the best fit. If you have to talk about fit, I believe Columbus is the best fit. Obviously, being Habs fans, Connor Bedard is like, yes, please, thank you. I'll take him tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But look, the likelihood of that happening, I'm not saying it's slim, but look, they won the draft lottery last year. I don't think they're going to win it 2 years in a row, but crazier things have happened in the NHL. So
I agree with that. I agree that with that pick, but like I was alluding to before, Philly and San Jose, since they need to, solidify themselves as rebuilding teams, this is the guy to literally let the fan bases
Connor,
know that we're going into a rebuild. Not only that, um, if I have to go with a rebuilding team that's already, known as a rebuilding team, the Chicago Blackhawks, because of
yeah, of course.
their dynasty players being shipped off by the deadline most likely, or they're going to be gone by the UFA market opening,
Yeah,
so the free agency in July. So they would need a top end talent. But any team that gets Connor Bedard or Matevi Michkov or Adam Fantilli or Leo Carlson or Dalbor Dvorsky, is a very, very lucky team. This is a very heavy draft in
yeah,
2023, and this is a year that you're going to want to tank. And these teams that we mentioned in the top 10 are going to have the privilege of drafting one of these young men that will be pivotal to their success in the
yeah.
future. So, guys, we just like to hear your comments in the comment section below. Any of the fan bases that we covered, which team is the best fit for Connor Bedard? Which team desperately needs him? I mean, every single team in the NHL would love to have
Yeah,
their
all
hands
three
on
could be.
him.
Unless you're the Rangers, because then you're gonna ruin them. So then never
Yeah,
mind.
you guys could check out our Lafreniere video. We already spoke about that. But guys, if you haven't already subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share this video with anyone who's interested in the 2023 draft, Connor Bedard, or just hockey in general. We'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns podcast.